smell of the fuel, the screeching of brakes. These are the smells and sounds of the racing world. Here and now, I'm going to enter that world and talk to some of the most exciting people in and around the racing world. Wally Dallenbach, Peter Revson, Joe Leonard, John Mahler, Gary Bettenhausen, Dan Guerney, Johnny Rutherford, Al Unser, Jerry Grant, Billy Vukovich, Dick Simon, his lovely wife Maryanne, Mario Andretti, movie star James Garner. Whew, that's some show. Flag is up, the race is about to begin, and so is my show for today. Even my heart is racing, for after this commercial, I talk to not one, not two, but three handsome men. James Garner, Mario Andretti, and Dan Guerney. Don't go away. Hundreds of people at the Ontario Speedway, but being a bona fide male watcher, I managed to find handsome male actor James Garner. James, did you decide to go into racing after acting because you did so much acting in racing movies?
Well, that's a supposition. After acting, I'm still acting, but I think my involvement in Grand Prix led to a very, very deep interest in racing. I've always been interested in it, but I'm very involved in it now.
Well, you're very much an actor. I noticed you're doing a special here today. And I appreciate they tell me you're working till way late into the evening hours, and I appreciate you're taking a couple of minutes. The special must be on racing, right?
Well, yes, it is. It's a thing called On Location for ABC. It's maybe you've seen Howard Cosell did one on the Miami Dolphins, and Truman Capote, I think, did some for the prisons, and I'm doing one about racing.
Will this have anything in it about the dangers of racing?
Yeah, well, we hope to have everything in it about racing, except just the physical racing. We're not particularly interested in the cars going around the track. People have seen that. We're interested in the people in racing. So I'm sure that, and we have already covered some of the safety factors and that sort of thing.
Well, I agree with you. Just to see the cars going around, it's you can see that on television. You're getting behind the scene things, and. Really, for the first time in my life, I'm nervous. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people, and usually they get nervous, but I'm nervous now.
I won't bite you. I'm not a bad guy. You don't need to be afraid of me.
I know you're not. Has your greatest thrill been in doing movies or in racing?
No, probably not either one. I think my family's been my greatest thrill.
Unlike James Garner, Mario Andretti makes racing his career. I asked Mario what kind of rewards race drivers reap.
Well, in a race such as Ontario, for instance, I think the winner could earn somewhere around $150,000, $175,000, and perhaps the last place would pay about $14,000 to $15,000.
And what does a race car cost?
Well, that's usually not my problem. I'm just a contracted driver, and I try not to worry about the cost of a car, but when we put figures on it, it's usually about $100,000 to just set it on the line without considering the maintenance and so forth.
You need the crew and repairs and maybe change of motors after that, don't you?
Yes, it's a great deal to do to a race car. They need even more care than a woman.
Well, that's pretty temperamental, I'd say. What do you think? Do you think we'll ever have female racers?
Well, with women's live the way it is today, I don't see why not, and I wouldn't try to discourage it.
Race car builder, owner Dan Guerney, a former race driver himself, is well aware of the high rate of danger in racing. He is now a member of the safety committee to reduce dangers like this fiery accident. He also knows plenty about the high cost of racing.
Well, our car starts a base price of $36,000 minus the engine, and that's with a gearbox and without any spares. So usually you have between $40,000 and $45,000 when you bought some spares, and then you have to buy engines. Engines cost roughly $25,000 each. And
is it ever necessary to have more than one engine for each race?
yes, we started out this year with 9 engines, with the idea of running one car in all of the 9 or 10 races, and another car in 3 or 4 of the big races, or largest races. So we needed 9 engines.
9 engines. And how about the cost of the crew? How many men do you need, and what is the cost?
Well, normally we have 3 men that live with the car, but when it comes to the race day, why, we usually have another 2 or 3 in addition. Plus, we have engine specialists, and there's the overhead, and well, it goes on and on. I know that last year our motel bill back in Indianapolis was around $16,000 for the month. So.
Well, I would say, and how do you manage to make sure you have the latest thing, that you really keep up with, what somebody might have built in their back garage? Do you use wiretapping?
I won't answer that question. But, we try to stay abreast of everything that is going on with our competitors, and we try to do as much as we possibly can of our own testing and development. Every time we find out that something is a little bit better, why, we try to find out why, and if a little bit is a help, maybe a little more would help more. And we go a lot of, as they say, cut and try.
I know that you're on the committee that promotes making racing safer. Could you tell me some of the current things that are happening there?
Well, I do have a few of the things. This is, for instance, a Nomex is the material. A Nomex sock that a driver would be able to put on. He puts it on over his inside his helmet. And here is again the same sort of material of some gloves. These will protect the driver if he is in a fire for 10, 12 seconds or so, which could be the vital 10, 12 seconds.
Are there any safety factors that particularly apply to the suit that the driver wears?
Well, the suit is made out of Nomex here on the outside, and then there's a different form of Nomex, which he wears as underwear. It's thicker and it breathes air more easily. But one of the things that we're coming up with now is a switch, which they call an inertia switch. If the car hits something pretty hard, it will actuate what amounts to shaving cream. And it comes throughout the suit, on the back and the front, and in a split second you have your suit fills up with shaving cream, and it is very good for protection in the event of a fire. That's one of the things. And then we're working out life support systems to give the driver air directly into his helmet from a small cylinder like they use sometimes for bailing out of high-speed airplanes. And, we're also trying to utilize a lot of the military technology in the construction of the fuel tanks so that we won't have a fire in the first place.
Great. I'm really glad you're working on all of those things. I have another question I wanted to ask you, and that's about this kind of wing-like shape back here. What is the particular function of that?
Well, it is a wing, although unlike an airplane, this one is upside down, so we're trying to fly the car, use aerodynamic downforce into the ground and give the tires more traction so that it can go around the corners faster. It also gives the car a lot more stability, and we think that it makes the car safer.
I was going to say that's a safety factor, too. You're really working at it every direction. Well, I certainly have appreciated your telling me some of these things, and I have to say that former race drivers don't die. They just keep right in the whole business. That is, if you're Dan Guerney. I'll be back with some other racing stars, and do I have some questions for them? And now from behind the scenes, I have Wally Dallenbach. Wally, I would like to know, if you had to do it all over again, would you go into racing again?
Yes, I certainly would. It's been very good to me, and it's been a big part of my life. And my young boys that are coming along now, one is 6 and one is 10, they're very interested in racing, and I think that if they get the call to come in this direction, I'd help them too.
What would be your opinion if some of your children decided they would like to go in racing? What would you suggest?
Well, I'd be very happy to give them some assistance, because I think one of the things you'll find in racing that you don't find in a lot of other aspects of life is the true competitive spirit that's here. For instance, the team effort. It's important that you learn to work with others and coordinate with your team, because if you have a team, for instance, the driver doesn't coordinate, or the team members themselves, if they're not compatible in all aspects, then basically they don't succeed. And so I think, yes, I'd encourage any one of my children to join racing.
What would you think about if your son decided to race a little later in life? I know he's only 9 now.
No, I'd have to discourage it. It's a little too dangerous.
You don't think it's too dangerous for you, but it is for him.
Right.
And what is your opinion regarding women driving sports cars?
Well, I welcome them. If they're competitive, then they're welcome.
Well, we don't know. There's been a few females that run sporting events. This is a sports car. This is very demanding on you. You have to be exceptionally strong and physically fit. By this, we have about a 10.5-inch steering wheel, and you have 20 inches of rubber in the front, and the car is full of fuel. It'd take a very strong woman to negotiate one of these type cars.
I've never thought much about it, but I'm not too worried about in my lifetime of having to compete with them. I guess everyone has the right to do what they want to do, and if they have the proper amount of skill, they can have at it.
Well, I really don't think that it's a feminine-type sport. I'd hate to see a woman with muscles all over her so she could drive for 500 miles, but after all, I'm a firm believer that women if they're capable of doing anything that a man can do, they should be allowed to do it.
It must be the glamorous men who make racing such a wonderful sport, and certainly Unser fits right into that category. What kind of fuel do you use in your car?
Well, the fuel is just straight methanol or alcohol. We don't use any additives anymore at all.
Why do you use alcohol rather than a gasoline?
Well, it's cooler burning fuel than gasoline, and it also burns slower, and it actually gives you more horsepower because you burn all of the fuel. But it's it's a lot more expensive than gasoline.
And what about motor oil? Do you use a special kind?
Well, it's castor oil motor oil, and which is it's a racing oil.
I thought only people took castor oil. Tell me, how are you at freeway driving?
Well, I'm not too good.
Driving one of Dan Guerney's Eagles today is Jerry Grant. Jerry, I'd like to ask you, what kind of a freeway driver are you?
Excellent.
Oh, I don't know, really. This morning I almost ran out of gas coming over here. Jay Lawrence did an interview with me, and he said, what do you think about the big fuel problems? I said, well, I had a terrific one this morning. I almost didn't make it to the station,
See, when you don't have the crew to fuel your car, you don't have enough gas in it, right?
No, I'm helpless. All I know how to do is turn the steering wheel.
Very safe, I believe. I haven't been stopped by a policeman in 3 years, so that must show something. I think most race drivers, you'll find that they get it out of their system on the racetrack, and when they get on the highway, they're content to just sit back, relax, and drive the speed limit.
Maybe they couldn't catch you.
Well, I'm very defensive. I drive pretty slowly.
Well, a cautious one, I think. Probably this day and time, you have to be very defensive and go very cautiously on the freeway, because you don't always know what that other guy is going to do.
No, I don't speed on. I go 75, 80 mile an hour. I don't speed around too much.
Freeway driver. Well, I could probably tell you better after about 3.5 hours out here on this freeway. But I feel that you have to be a very defensive driver on the freeways, because you can't judge other people's, like race cars or professional drivers, race drivers, and unfortunately a normal person might be an older person or maybe from the country, and they don't all drive the same. And not to say that we do either, but basically we're headed in the same direction, whereas on a freeway you must be aware of the unknown and be ready for it. So take it easy out there.
Have you ever seen anyone make a salad at the Ontario Speedway? Well, you will next. This stunning redhead is the lady who was called Honey by Dick Simon, mom by 7 children and the racing crew, and 2 grandchildren even call her grandmother. I call her lovely. and she is very, very young. Her name is Maryanne Simons. Maryanne, I would like to know, what are your thoughts, or what do you do during the race while your husband is racing?
Well, this year I think I'm going to change my strategy a little bit. Usually at all the races I end up going back down to the garage and just kind of sitting there by myself. But sometimes it hasn't worked out too well because he seems to go out early in the race. So now I've decided to go up and sit with the other wives and the crew's wives, and I think this might work out better this year.
We're sure he'll stay in the whole race that way.
So.
I understand that you have a great emergency measure in that you keep a year's supply of food on hand at home for your family. Would you tell me a little bit more about why you do that?
Yes, I do that. I think it's important that you have a lot of food on hand because you really never know what's going to happen from one day to the next. But we do travel an awful lot, and it's very convenient for me just to have that amount of food on hand because then the children don't have to worry about running to the store off and on.
And you also have it in case of emergencies, and as I understand that you can share it with your neighbors. You're of the Mormon faith, and they do keep a year's supply of food on hand for this reason. I think it's a good idea for all of us to do that.
Oh, I do too. I really believe in that. I think it's very important to have an extra amount of food because you really never know.
Could you name some of the foods that you keep on hand?
Oh, I have flour, which you have to rotate, and sugar that you have to rotate. But I do have a lot of canned foods, and I buy a lot of canned foods that have meat in, a lot of tuna fish, a lot of salmon, and lots of soups that have meat in, and vegetables and fruit.
Maybe non-fat dry milk?
Yes, I have that too. And then I do bottled water in the plastic Purex bottles that I keep.
I understand that about 25 gallons for a year's supply will take care of one person as far as just drinking. I think it's a great idea, great measure. And I also know something else great that you do. The racing crew told me that you make a terrific shrimp salad. And I got the recipe from you, and I'm going to share it with my viewers. We start with a big bowl. In this case, it happens to be the soup kettle because it's convenient when you travel to have multiple uses for dishes. I started with lettuce, and 2 bunches of endive, and a bunch of spinach, and a bunch of romaine, and then just tore it all apart as you would normally for a salad. Then this happens to be zucchini, and that's 2 zucchinis, which Maryanne is going to add and slice thin. And then this is a small head of cauliflower sliced into little cauliflowerettes. Then Maryanne tells me she adds vegetables that are cooked that she may have left over, and you drain the juice off and use the juice, of course, in stews or soups. And this is about 2 cups of cooked green beans. And then we have croutons, which she likes to add, which really doesn't matter too much as to the amount. This happens to be a box. And here's a good one. This is untoasted sunflower seeds. They're also unsalted. You may want to use walnuts or almonds or many kind of nuts. And then here we have shrimp. This happens to be a pound. But Maryanne tells me she uses leftover chicken or ham or turkey or whatever she happens to have. And then this is grated cheddar cheese, which we'll be adding. And over here we have little cherry tomatoes. And then, of course, salt and pepper. And Maryanne makes her own special dressing. And now, Maryanne, would you please add the dressing, which I believe you told me was about a half cup of sesame oil and about 1/4 cup of red wine vinegar. Tell me, why do you use sesame oil?
Well, sesame oil seems to be much lighter, and I think it tastes lots better. And besides, it's a health food.
Great. Always thinking about the family. Now, I know she's going to be tossing that, and the hungry crew will soon be rushing toward it. It's a terrific looking salad. That was Maryanne Simons, wife, mother, grandmother, cook to the racing crew, and a really fine example of a modern American woman.
Mamma mia, that's a some salad. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
In the race of life, take it easy, enjoy every moment, and make each day a very good day. Here and now from me, Bee Beyer. Have a good day.